Good morning, everyone. Today we will be discussing about bone and calcium metabolism. Again, a very important endocrine topic. So, in next two classes, we are going to discuss about calcium metabolism, disorders associated with hypercalcemia, hypocalcemia, osteomalacia, and osteoporosis. So, we will discuss these important things for you in calcium and bone metabolism. Now, looking at serum calcium, total human body contains around 1 to 2 kgs of calcium, out of which 99% remains inside the bones, 1% is intracellular, and very small amount, 0.1% is extracellular. The plasma calcium levels varies between 9 to 11 milligram per deciliter, out of which 45% is free calcium, which is known as ionized calcium, and 45% is bound to plasma protein, and the remaining are bound to various anions, cations, etc. Now, important to remember is that calcium levels are maintained by two important hormones, that is vitamin D and parathyroid hormone, which is PTH. When we were students, vitamin D, as the name suggests, was considered as vitamin. Nowadays, it is recognized that vitamin D is actually a hormone which is involved in regulation of calcium phosphate metabolism and very important for maintaining bone health. So as I've told you, calcium exists in various forms. 45% is ionized, which is physiologically active form, while 45% is bound to protein, and the predominant protein which is present in the body is albumin, so it is bound to albumin, and then 10% is complex to various anions. Now, why we should know it? When we are looking at serum calcium level, we have to simultaneously measure serum albumin level, and we have to correct serum calcium for albumin level. If there is hypoalbuminemia, means albumin levels are low or albumin levels are high. Correspondingly, the calcium level will change. So as you see, this is a formula for the same. The corrected serum calcium is serum calcium which you have measured plus 4 minus albumin multiplied by zero point 0.8. So this will give you corrected serum calcium. So whenever you see a patient reports, always, or you are asking for investigation in calcium profile, you ask for calcium phosphate, albumin, and alkaline phosphatase, because you have to correct calcium for serum albumin level. Also, when you are ordering calcium profile, always ask for phosphate along with it, because the relationship between serum calcium phosphate is going to decide about various disease states associated with calcium phosphate metabolism. Now, if you look at the basic metabolic control of calcium, if you have low serum calcium, it will stimulate secretion of parathyroid hormone. Means parathyroid hormone is the most critically important hormone for maintaining normal serum calcium. If you have high calcium, it will suppress PTH. Now, how this is happening? There are presence of calcium sensing receptor over parathyroid gland as well as in the kidney tubule. So the serum calcium level is sensed by calcium sensing receptor. So if you have high serum calcium, it is sensed by PTH calcium sensing receptor, and PTH level goes down. At the same time, calcium sensing receptor which are present in the kidney will cause more excretion of calcium. So PTH is responsible for maintaining plasma calcium. And if we see the other actions of parathyroid hormone, as I have told you, it stimulates renal calcium absorption, it enhances renal phosphate excretion, it stimulates 1 alpha hydroxylase activity, because of which there is active formation of vitamin D, which is 125 dihydroxy vitamin D, and PTH also promote reabsorption of bone from the calcium. All these actions actually tends to maintain serum calcium in a normal range. If we see the actions of vitamin D3, it promotes absorption of calcium from the gut. It also promotes absorption of phosphate from the gut. Now, how vitamin D is formed? Normally, in all of us, there is presence of 7-dehydrocholesterol in the skin. Upon exposure to ultraviolet light, and that too a critical wavelength light, this 7-dehydrocholesterol is converted into cholecalciferol, which is vitamin D3. Now, cholecalciferol is also present in the diet. Majority of it is available from only animal diets. In plant diet, it is yeast, which is source for vitamin D. Now, vitamin D undergo first step of hydroxylation in the liver, where it is hydroxylated at 25 position to form 25 hydroxycholecalciferol, which is calcidiol. This is acted upon by 1-alpha hydroxylase activity, which is located in kidney and is converted into an active form of vitamin D, which is 125 dihydroxy cholecalciferol or calcitriol. Again, as you see, PTH and decrease in serum phosphate concentration. They stimulate activity of 1-alpha hydroxylase, while active vitamin D and increase in serum phosphate have a negative feedback effect on 1-alpha hydroxylase activity. So you must remember these positive negative feedbacks, because important pre-PG questions are framed out of these tables, and if you will not understand the important relationships between calcium, phosphate, PTH, vitamin D, you will not be able to solve these tricky pre-PG questions. Now, this is what we have discussed till now in previous slides, that from gut there is absorption of calcium and phosphate. Now, this calcium phosphate absorption is stimulated by 125 dihydroxy vitamin D. Calcium is majority present in the bone. A small amount is present in the plasma. 50% of it is free, 50% is bound. Its regulation is happening at the level of kidney. I have told you PTH stimulate calcium absorption. It promotes phosphate excretion. Try to maintain calcium in normal range. Now, what are normal values? You will be surprised. Few years back, an entire MBBS batch is not knowing the normal values. If you does not know the normal values, how you are going to interpret it? So you must know these normal values. The calcium normal value is 9 to 11 milligram per deciliter, or in our lab it is 8.4 to 10.6. Phosphate is 2.5 to 4.5. Normal albumin is between 3.5 to 4.5, median value of 4, and normal value of intact PTH is 15 to 50 picograms per ml. Now, coming to first disorder, which is hypercalcemia. What are signs and symptoms of hypercalcemia? Means increased serum calcium. Calcium become more than 11 milligram per deciliter. Now, most patients of hypercalcemia are either asymptomatic or they presents with vague signs and symptoms. And there is a ill-defined correlation of symptoms with degree of hypercalcemia. Why most common presentation of asymptomatic? Reason being, nowadays we have automated analyzers where a plasma sample is analyzed and lot of biochemical tests are performed. And these patients are detected to have hypercalcemia, but they does not have any signs and symptom. If we look for signs and symptoms of hypercalcemia, they are related to multiple organs of our body. In neurological system, hypercalcemia results in lethargy, confusion, and severe cases coma. It results in depression, psychosis. It can cause hypertension. If you remember the last class, hypercalcemia and hypokalemia are important causes of diabetes insipidus. So it will cause increased passage of urine in the individual. It can result in nephrolithiasis. In gastrointestinal system, it will result in nausea, anorexia, constipation, and even pancreatitis. So nowadays, we have started screening actually all patients of pancreatitis for calcium profile. And in rheumatological system, when along with hypercalcemia, you have severe hypophosphatemia and increased PTH level, it will result in proximal muscle weakness and bone loss. Now, what are causes of hypercalcemia? It is very easy to remember. Now, when you see a case of hypercalcemia, And as I told you, PTH is a primary hormone responsible for maintaining calcium levels. So it can be because of increased production of parathyroid hormone, or it can be because of increased production of PTH like substances, which is known as PTHRP, PTH related peptide, or it can be because of vitamin D like factors or vitamin D intoxication, various drugs, familial disorders, which involve disorders of calcium sensing receptor, and drug diseases which affect calcium metabolism. So the first is hypercalcemia, which is caused by elevated parathyroid hormone. Now, most of these cases results from primary elevation of PTH, and because the reason for it is parathyroid adenoma. Around 85% of the cases are because of solitary parathyroid adenoma. Very few cases, around 10%, are because of all four gland hyperplasia. I hope you are remembering there are four parathyroid glands present in us, and parathyroid hyperplasia or hyperparathyroidism is an important component of MEN syndromes, and parathyroid carcinoma is a rare entity. There can be a secondary elevation of PTH, which is because of renal failure. Now, if we look at primary hyperparathyroidism, as I have told you, majority of cases are because of single adenoma. Few cases may have multiple adenomas. It is considered to be an uncommon disease when we were students, but now it is recognized that even in our country, good number of patients are suffering from primary hyperparathyroidism, and it is not uncommon for us to see at least 20-25 patients in a year. What is surprising is because of lack of understanding and lack of suspicion, majority of patients, the diagnosis is initially missed by a number of physicians before a correct diagnosis is made. The prevalence increases with age. It is more common in women as compared to men. What are clinical features of hyperparathyroidism? Patient can present to you with hypercalcemic crisis, that is serum calcium more than 15, associated with manifestations like renal disease, which involved renal stone disease, bone disease, because there is increased absorption of calcium from the bones, so bones become weak. There is presence of osteoclastoma inside the bones, gastrointestinal, neuromuscular, neuropsychiatric manifestations, which we have discussed for hypercalcemia, hypertension, and it can deposit in the eyes where it can result in band keratopathy, pruritus, and as I have told you, in today's era and especially in Western world, the most common presentation is asymptomatic. Now, this is clinical photograph of one of the patients who was suffering from primary hyperparathyroidism, and as you see in the digits, huge present of lytic lesions. These are known as osteoclastomas. If you see spine, again lytic lesions are present in the spine. These are lower limb bones, and again you see number of punched out lytic lesions which are present in the bones. These are known as giant cell tumors or osteoclastomas. Now, how to differentiate between primary versus secondary versus tertiary hyperparathyroidism? As I have told you, you have to remember this relationship between calcium, phosphate, PTH, and vitamin D. In primary hyperparathyroidism, calcium will be elevated, phosphate will be low, PTH is high, and 125 dihydroxyvitamin D is normal or high. In secondary and hyperparathyroidism, calcium levels are low. The most common cause is renal failure. Phosphate is high, PTH is markedly elevated, and vitamin D level are low because renal parenchyma is lost. And in long-standing tertiary hyperparathyroidism, who progressed to tertiary cases where hyperplastic gland undergo adenomatous changes, again calcium level are high, but the phosphate is also high at the same time. PTH is markedly elevated and vitamin D is low. So as you see very carefully, if you remember the relationship between calcium, phosphate, PTH, and vitamin D, you can easily make out differentiation between primary, secondary, and tertiary hyperparathyroidism. How to make diagnosis of primary hyperparathyroidism? You measure serum calcium level, albumin level, correct for it. You measure intact PTH levels. We have discussed about normal range. In presence of hypercalcemia, PTH levels are elevated, phosphate is suppressed and serum alkaline phosphatase is increased, the diagnosis of primary hyperparathyroidism is confirmed. The confirmation or localization of the tumor is important because surgeon has to operate accordingly. For that, technetium 99 system EB scan of the neck is performed, which will show you parathyroid adenoma. This is one such case where technetium system EB scan is performed, and as you see, this is location of the thyroid gland. Ideally, the parathyroid gland should have been identified here, but this individual, there is a presence of mediastinal parathyroid gland, which is ectopic parathyroid gland responsible for hypercalcemia. What is treatment of choice? Treatment of choice for parathyroid adenoma is surgery. It is largely a successful surgery, but preoperatively, patient should be explained about the risk of vocal cord paralysis, which can be seen in 1% of the cases, and permanent hypoparathyroidism can be seen to the tune of 4 to 10% of the cases, depending on expertise of the surgeon. In those cases where surgery is not possible, cannot be planned immediately, or probably in days like today's days where COVID-19 is going on, patient does not have access to the surgeons. Probably there we have some medical therapies. We can give bisphosphonates for control of hypercalcemia. We can use HRT therapy, and we can use calcium mimetic agents. What are calcium mimetic agents? These are drugs which goes and act on calcium sensing receptor. Now, by acting on calcium sensing receptor, these drugs brings down serum calcium level. One such drug is available in our country, which is cinacalcet hydrochloride. Now, if we look at other causes of hypercalcemia, the next important cause is PTH-related peptide, PTH-RP. The most important cause for them is various types of carcinomas, lymphoma, leukemia, and myeloma. Remember, in these cases, PTH is suppressed in presence of hypercalcemia, and PTH-RP is elevated. Then we have conditions which are associated with either increased level of vitamin D intoxication, or various granulomatous disorders where there is increased conversion of 25-hydroxy to active vitamin D inside the granulomatous tissue, where 1-alpha hydroxylase is expressed in macrophages. Three important disorders associated with are tuberculosis, histoplasmosis, and sarcoidosis. If we look at other causes, some important drugs like lithium, use of antacids which contain calcium, thiazide diuretic, and vitamin D intoxication are responsible for hypercalcemia. And lastly, few diseases like hyperthyroidism, Paget's disease, familial hypocalciuric hypercalcemia, which we will discuss in brief, and immobility will also result in hypercalcemia. What is FHH? I have told you about calcium sensing receptor, which are present over parathyroid gland and which are also present in the kidney. In FHH, which is familial hypocalciuric hypercalcemia, there is inactivating mutation of calcium sensing receptor, which means the parathyroid cells are not able to sense the increased serum calcium level, and that is why serum calcium levels are maintained at higher than the normal. Also, kidneys are not able to sense, so there is increased urinary calcium reabsorption. It's an autosomal dominant disorder. Homozygous patients actually presents in young age. Now remember, apart from MEN syndromes, in young age, less than 10 years of age, and in neonates, primary hyperparathyroidism is highly uncommon. So if you see in young age, hypercalcemia, which is asymptomatic, and you screen family members who are also suffering from asymptomatic mild hypercalcemia, then you should keep a high index of suspicion for disease, which is FHH, familial hypocalciuric hypercalcemia. As the name suggests, there is hypocalciuria, means increased absorption of calcium from the kidney. So if you look at a fractional excretion of the calcium, it is markedly low as compared to primary hyperparathyroidism, which has high serum calcium excretion. I have told you this is autosomal dominant. This is formula for calculating fractional excretion of calcium. If you are interested, you can note down from the slide, or even you can find out from various books. Now, what are differential diagnosis? Clinical features, as I have told you, are largely not much useful. Hypercalcemia, if found in an asymptomatic individual, we have to rule out primary hyperparathyroidism. If you find hypercalcemia in the background of malignancy, its importance is deciding about prognosis of the patient. Most of these patients are actually having diffuse metastasis, and their average lifespan is less than 1 to 2 years. Now, if you see hypercalcemia, how to manage it, I have told you there are drugs. Bisphosphonate are one group of drug. We have intravenous forms available. In patients who have marked hypercalcemia, we can take help of them. Bisphosphonate inhibits osteoclastic activity. And since 99% of the calcium reside inside the bone, so the movement of calcium from the bone is stopped. In granulomatous disorder associated hypercalcemia or hypercalcemia associated with lymphomas, glucocorticoid, uh, that is prednisolone, is drug of choice. In patients who are not fit for surgery, I have told you, or in patients who have calcium sensing receptor mutations, or in patients of parathyroid carcinoma, calcium mimetic drug cinacalcet hydrochloride can be utilized. It is available now in our country. If you see a patient of hypercalcemic crisis or patient has to be prepared preoperatively for surgery, these patients should be given normal saline along with loop diuretic. It is loop diuretic furosemide which promote excretion of calcium from the kidneys. If by default or by mistake you give thiazide diuretic promote absorption of calcium from the kidneys. You have to very carefully choose your diuretic. Apart from that, we can take help of calcitonin, which again inhibits osteoclastic activity. I have discussed about bisphosphonate, and I have also discussed about steroid replacement therapy. Now coming to hypocalcemia. Now we have discussed about hypercalcemia, we have discussed about primary hyperparathyroidism. The next is hypocalcemia. As the name suggests, serum calcium levels are low. So the levels are less than 8.5 milligram per deciliter. Now whenever you see a biochemical report of hypocalcemia, always look at albumin and correct serum calcium before proceeding further. Now if we see the clinical feature, hypocalcemia results in increased neuromuscular irritability, because of which patients have carpopedal spasm, which is Trouse's sign. Patient can have Chvostek signs positive. What is Chvostek sign? When you tap over facial nerve after tragus of the ear, there will be twitching of the ipsilateral facial muscle. Now, this is because again excitability of the seventh cranial nerve. These patients have perioral numbness, paresthesias, tetany, lethargy, in severe cases even seizures and respiratory arrest. Now again, so we have picked up lots of cases who have intractable seizures, who are suffering from hypocalcemia, and where hypocalcemia is not picked up, and the number of drugs, antiepileptic drugs, are increased unnecessarily. So in any patient where you are finding seizures are difficult to control, rule out hypocalcemia and associated disorders with hypocalcemia. In cardiovascular system, it will result in various types of heart blocks, and in long-standing cases, congestive heart failure. It can result in weakness, cramps, dry skin, brittle hair. Now, what are causes of hypocalcemia? Again, you have to remember the relationship between calcium, phosphate, and vitamin D. When hypocalcemia can happen, PTH will be absent, as simple as remember. Now, when PTH can be absent, it can be because of hypoparathyroidism. Now, hypoparathyroidism can be hereditary or genetic in origin, or it can be acquired hypoparathyroidism. What are causes of acquired hypoparathyroidism? They can be post surgery. Somebody who is operated for thyroid surgery or parathyroid adenoma surgery and inadvertently develop hypoparathyroidism. Various autoimmune disorders like autoimmune parathyroid destruction seen in polyglandular autoimmune syndrome. Various infiltrative disorders like sarcoidosis, metastatic disorders, chronic heavy alcohol consumption. Now, how it causes? When somebody is consuming heavy alcohol, it will result in increased magnesium excretion from the kidneys, and magnesium is an important second messenger results required for synthesis and secretion of PTH. So the PTH level comes down, which will result in hypocalcemia. So there can be causes which are PTH absent. And next, hypomagnesemia I have discussed. PTH is not absent, it is present, but it is ineffective. Means PTH is not able to exert its action. Now, when it can happen? It can happen when vitamin D is not synthesized, because vitamin D is responsible for absorption of calcium from the gut. So it can happen in chronic renal failure when renal parenchyma mass is reduced, or in disease condition where there is excessive phosphate retention, which is seen in renal failure or various other disorder. Now, if we look at other causes of ineffective PTH, it can be because of dietary vitamin D deficiency, malabsorptive disorders, use of various anticonvulsant therapies, pseudo hypoparathyroidism, we will discuss in brief, where there is a defective PTH receptor action, and lastly, PTH is present but overwhelmed. Now, how this happens? This can happen when there is a rapid loss of calcium from extracellular fluid. Now, this can be seen in acute renal failure, in various conditions of tissue destruction, and in patients who have undergone parathyroid surgery for parathyroid adenoma. There are large amount of osteoclastic lesions or osteoclastomas present. If you remember the diagrams which I have shown you, and then after the surgery, calcium start moving inside the bone. This is known as hungry bone syndrome. So remember, causes of hypocalcemia, either PTH is absent, PTH is present but it is ineffective, or PTH is overwhelmed. So three important categories, some important reasons. You will easily remember the causes of hypocalcemia. Now, there is an important term which is known as pseudo hypoparathyroidism. Now, these patients have hypocalcemia, they have hyperphosphatemia. Same picture as you see in hypoparathyroidism. When PTH levels are low, calcium will be low, phosphate will be high. So hypocalcemia, hyperphosphatemia. But if you measure PTH level in them, it will be normal or slightly elevated. Also, they have characteristic facial features, physical appearance, which includes they are short, they have round faces, they have short, thick neck, and there is shortening of metacarpal. This is an autosomal dominant disease. There is resistance to action of parathyroid hormone. So parathyroid hormone is present, but it is not able to exert its action because of resistance at the level of receptors. Now, children can present with this disorder similar to children to the patients of hypoparathyroidism, that is tetany and seizures. These children have hypoplasia of limbs and animals. There is delay in eruption of tooth. Treatment remains vitamin D and calcium. Now, this is photograph of one of children and the tooth, as you see. These are known as elephant faces. They are short and there is enamel hypoplasia. Now, how to make differential diagnosis? If you have low serum calcium, high phosphorus, and serum creatinine is normal, there is no destruction. What is diagnosis? Diagnosis is hypoparathyroidism or pseudo hypoparathyroidism. Measure PTH level. PTH levels are suppressed, it is hypoparathyroidism. If PTH levels are normal, slightly elevated, it is pseudo hypoparathyroidism. If you have low serum calcium, low phosphorus, it means vitamin D deficiency. So again, for hypocalcemia, you have to remember calcium, phosphate, PTH, vitamin D relationship. Now we will show you some of the cases. I do not know how will you interact, but if it would have been a normal class, I would have asked some of you to interact and to tell me what type of disease you are suspecting in such patient, because these are exercises what we have learned in last 40 minutes. So a patient come to you with elevated serum calcium. He's a 40-year male, no complaints. Family history, past medical history is negative. Baseline serum investigation is 11.5 milligram per deciliter. Physical examination is normal. So, what is the most common cause of asymptomatic hypercalcemia? Can anyone comment? Okay, it is primary hyperparathyroidism. So, what you are expecting in this patient PTH to be high, and phosphate in this patient should be low. So this is case 1. Let's see second case. A man presents with lethargy, fatigue and weakness. So 60-year-old male presents with complaint of weakness